In this video, let's go over 10 of the most popular functions used in Microsoft Excel, and these are the most searched and the most liked functions by the majority of Excel users in the whole world right now. And we're going to be ranking them by popularity. But before we begin, let me know in the comment section what is your favorite Excel function right now. And if you like this type of content, please leave a like on this video and do not forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel in case this is your first time here. Thank you for doing that. But for now, let's begin. In the tens position, we have the index function. So what does the index function do? I'll head over to the insert function in my formula bar here and punch in index in my search area and click go. This will give me the index right there. I can say okay. And this is one of the functions that comes in two forms. You can see it has the array form as well as the reference form. But let us pick the reference form just to demonstrate what the index does. So the index function returns a value or a reference of a cell at the intersection of a particular row and a column in a given range, and it comes with three mandatory arguments, and that's the array argument, which is simply a range of cells or an array constant, as well as the row number, which is simply a row that you declare that the index function should return from in case it finds a match. So if you omit this row number argument, you have to specify the column number argument. Now let us close this one out and look at this with an example. So assuming that we had our price list that we are maintaining in our worksheet, and we would like to look up for the product and return their prices, we can use the index function. So what I will do is to come over to this cell and say equals index. I open brackets. I will use the array form first, and the array that contains our possible values or our possible results is this array right here, which contains the prices, comma, and the row that we'd like to return from in this range. I'll just hard code in a 4 here, but in just a moment I'll show you how you can automate this row number argument using the match function. I'll close off the index from here and hit enter key on the keyboard. You can see this one will return the price of watermelon in this particular price table. But the problem with this approach is that when a user changes the product here in the drop down list, for example to apple, you can see that the price does not change. And if you'd like these prices to change every time a user picks another product, that calls for introducing the match function to automate the row number argument. So what I will do is to double click this formula that we wrote, and instead of hard coding in a 4, I will introduce the match function, and I will be looking up for this product that we have here, comma, and the array where I'm looking up this product from will be this range, comma, and I'm interested in an exact match, so I'll put a 0 and close off the match from here and hit enter key on the keyboard. You can see this one will return the price of pineapple because it's the value that is selected in the drop down. If I wanted the price for banana, just as an example, I can pick from here and the price will pop up automatically. With the index function, we can also perform a two-way lookup. For example, if we had a table that looks like this, we have our product IDs, we have the product themselves, and the quantities that were sold for specific periods. And maybe we'd like to populate or to write an index function that will look up for the quantities sold for a specific product in a specific period. Okay, this is called a two-way lookup. So I can come over to this cell and say equals index. I'll use the array form, and the array that contains our possible values or our possible result is this array that has the quantities that we are sold, comma, and for the row number, because we want this one automated, I'll open the match function. What are we looking up for? We are looking up for the product that we have in this cell, comma, and the lookup array this time will be this range here. Since we are interested in an exact match, I'll say 0 and close off the match from here, comma, and for the column number argument, because we want to return from a given period, I'll open the match function one more time, and this time we shall be looking up for the value that is selected in the month column, comma, and we shall be looking this one up from our month names up here, comma, and we shall also be doing an exact match. I put a 0, close off the match function from here, close the entire index and hit enter key on the keyboard. You can see that for Apple in February we sold 258. If this product changed, for example, to watermelon, you can see 254 items were sold in Feb for watermelon. Similarly, we can also change the period. Let's go for Apple. In here you can see watermelons that we sold in this period, 483. In the 9th position we have the find function. So what does the find function do? I'll head over to the insert function dialog box and punch in here find in my search area, click go and then OK. So what the find function does is that it returns the starting position of one text string within another text string, and it comes with these arguments right here. The first one is the find text argument, which is simply the text that you want to find. Make sure you enclose the text inside the double quotes. The within argument is simply the text or the entire text string that contains a set of text strings that you're searching for. And the other optional argument is the start number argument. Now let us close this function's argument dialog box and look at this particular function in action. Assuming that this is the data set that you're maintaining in your worksheets, and the question here is very simple. We want you to look at this particular entire text string and tell us what is the position of the first space that separates between words in this particular cell. So I'll head over to this cell and say equals find. What are we finding? We are finding a space, so I'll open quotes and in between I put a space, close quotes, comma. Where are we searching this text from? We are searching it up from this particular text string. I can close off the find from here and hit enter key on the keyboard. You can see this one will tell me that the first space is actually sitting in the 6th position. I can double click and send this formula down. Similarly, if I would like to search for the second space, I'll head over to this cell and say equals find. What are we finding? Still, it's a space. Where are we finding this space from? Within this particular text, comma, and this time we need to supply the start number argument. Okay, so I'll say start from the 6th position, but add 1 because I don't want you to consider the space, and close off the find function from here and hit enter key on the keyboard. You can see this one will give us the second space position in this entire text string, which is the 13th position. I can double click and send this formula down. Similarly, if there was a third space here, we can still find it again. I can come here and say equals find. What are we finding? We are finding a space, comma, within this particular text string, comma, and for the start number we shall be using the second space position, but again say +1 because we don't want to return or to start the search from the space itself. So I'll close off the find from here and hit enter key on the keyboard. This will tell me that the third space in this entire text string is sitting in position number 22. I can double click this formula and send it down. If you don't want to use the find function and you'd like to perform similar searches like we have done in these 3 examples, you can use the search function as well. In the 8th position we have the days function. So what does the days function do? This simply returns the number of days between 2 dates. For example, in the data set that we have right here, this seems to be human resources data, and you can see you have the staff names, the basic salary that they earn, the date they joined us, and would like to count how many days has each individual person spent with us since they joined us. So I'd literally come over to this cell and say equals, I open the days function, and for the end date I'll actually use today's date. I can point over to this cell because today is 11th Jan 2024, and for the start date I'll actually point to the date that this guy joined us. And when I close off this particular days function and hit enter key on the keyboard, you can clearly see that this first guy here has only spent with us 10 days. Now if I want to copy this formula down, what I need to do is to fix this reference here, G1. I have to make it absolute, F4 key on the keyboard, hit enter, and now I can double click this and populate all these other cells. If I do not use the cell reference, I can use the today function itself. So I'll just Control Z to go back, and I'll write this formula again. I'll say equals, I open the days function, and for the end date I'll actually use the today's function. So I'll open today and close brackets, comma, and for the start date I'll point to the date this guy joined. I can close off the days function from here and hit enter key on the keyboard. So for this one I don't need to do any locking. I'll just double click and send this formula down, and you can clearly see these are the number of days that each individual staff member has spent at this particular organization. In our 7th position we have the date function. So what does the date function do? I'll go back to the insert function dialog box and punch in date. I click go and then OK. The date function simply returns the number that represents the date in Microsoft Excel's datetime code, and it comes with 3 mandatory arguments. That is the year argument, and this is simply a number from 1900 or 1904 depending on the workbook's date system, all the way through to 9999. And for the month argument, this is simply a number from 1 to 12 that represents the month of the year, and the day argument, which is our 3rd argument, is the number from 1 to 31 that represents the day of the month. Now let us close off this dialog box and look at this date function in action. Assuming that we have this data set and would like to extract only the date serial number in this entire text string, we can see we have the product space, the sales rep name space, and then the date space and the amount that each sales rep made. I'll head over to this cell and say equals, I'll open the mid function, and for the text that would like to extract from is this particular text, comma, and for our start number argument I'll give this cell address Y, because we have already seen that our second space where we want to start extracting from is sitting in the 13th position. Because my interest is to start extracting from the 14th position, I'll say +1. That will serve as our start number argument, and the number of characters that I want to extract are 8, and I will close off the mid function from here and hit enter key on the keyboard. So this will return a portion of this particular text string. I can double click and send this one down. Now to convert this one into a date value, because it's actually being seen as text, I'll head over to this cell and say equals, I open the date function. Now for the year argument, I'll actually use the left function. I want to extract from the left only 4 characters, so I select this text, comma, and the number of characters are 4. I close off the left from here, comma, and for the month argument I'll use the mid function. I'll open the mid function, and this is the text that I want to extract from. The start number will of course be the 5th position, because we know the year has 4 numbers. So I want to extract from the 5th position. I'll say 5, and the number of characters are only 2. I'll close off the mid from here, and for the day argument I'll say comma. For this one I can use the right function. I'll open the right function, and the text I want to extract from is right here, and the number of characters are only 2. I can close off the right from here and close the date function entirely and hit enter key on the keyboard. So you can see this one has been extracted, and it shows now as a proper date value, 27th of October 2017. I can now double click this formula and send it down. The other scenario that relates to the date function that we have just seen is this particular scenario. If we have this human resources data where we have the staff names, the salary that they earn, and the date they joined us, and maybe for example would like to know how many years has each individual staff member spent with us. So I would come over to this cell and use the DATEDIF function. I'll say DATEDIF, I open brackets, I'll point over to the date they joined, comma, and I'd like to know from today what is their current years that they have spent with us. I can open the today function from here, comma, and then specify that I'm interested in returning the number of years. So I'll open quotes and put in a Y here, close quotes, and close the DATEDIF function. And when I hit enter key on the keyboard, you can see this guy has spent with us 12 years since they joined us on the 1st of January 2012. I can actually double click and send this one down, and there you go. You can see the number of years that each individual staff member has spent with us. Similarly, if you don't use the today function inside this particular function's argument, I'll head back over to this cell and say equals DATEDIF. I open parentheses, but this is very important. The DATEDIF function is the only function that do not have functions arguments, so you need to be careful when you're using this particular function. I'll point over to the date join, comma, and because I wanted to know from today how many years has this guy spent with us, I'll point over to today's date, which I have populated right there. F4 key on the keyboard to lock it, because I'm going to be copying this formula down, and I'll say comma, because I'm interested in returning the number of years. I'll open quotes and put in a Y in there and close quotes and close the DATEDIF function. When I hit enter key on the keyboard, of course, I'll get 12 as the number of years that this guy has spent with us since they joined us on the 1st of January 2012. I can double click using my fill handle to populate the numbers for the rest of the staff members. In our spot number 6, we have the choose function. So what does the choose function do? I'll come back over to the insert function dialog box and type in here choose, click on go, and then OK. So what the choose function does is that it chooses a value or action to perform from a list of values based on an index number, and it comes with these arguments here. The first one is the index number argument, and this one simply specifies which value argument is selected. So this should be an index number between 1 and 254, or a formula or a reference to a number between 1 and 254. The second argument is the value 1 argument. So this one can also move from value 1, value 2, all the way through to value 254, and these are just numbers or cell references, defined names, formulas, functions, or text arguments from which the choose function will select from. Now let us close this dialog box and look at the choose function in action. Our interest is to calculate the commission in this particular column, but the commission rate tables are different. We have commission rates for apple, we also have commission rates for mango as a product, and we also have different commission rates for pineapple as a product. But to start this formula off, let us first write a choose function here and see how it works. I'll say equals choose. So the choose function will ask for the index number argument. Assuming that I would like to pick from the second table, which belongs to the mango as a product, I can put in here the index as 2, comma, and now I can start highlighting my tables. So I'll give reference number 1, comma, and I also give value to argument, comma, and I also give the third table. I'm simply instructing the choose function to only pick from the second table. When I close off the choose function from here and hit enter, you can see these are values from our second table. If I came over to this formula and changed the index number here to, let's say, 3, and hit enter key on the keyboard, you can see these numbers will change, and you can see we are picking from table 3 right here. Of course, this one gives us clue on how we should actually complete this particular operation with any of our lookup functions. We can either use the index or the VLOOKUP, but for this example, I'll be using the VLOOKUP to perform this search. Now, if you'd like to automate the index number argument inside our choose, I can come in here and remove these 3, and then I introduce the match function. What am I looking up for? I'll be looking up for apple, comma, and where am I looking it up from? I've created a unique table reference here, and this is called the manual mapping. So table 1 is for apple, table 2 is for mango, and table 3 is for apple. So what I need to do here in the lookup array for our match function, I'll point to this range, comma, and I'll be doing an exact match. So I do a 0 and close off the match from here. So when I hit enter key on the keyboard, you can see because we have apple in this particular cell, that's why we are able to pick values from the first table. Altogether, if I actually changed what is here to, let's say, mango, and hit enter key on the keyboard, you can see that these numbers will change here. Now we are picking from the mango commissions rate table. If I change this one to pineapple and hit enter, you can see the numbers will change, and now we are looking at commission rate table number 3. Our interest is not to return the entire range of table. Our interest is to return from only the second column, which contains our commission rate percentages. Okay, so to do that, I will need to introduce the VLOOKUP here. So what I do, I open the VLOOKUP, and the lookup value will be the units sold, comma. So our table array will be anything that is being delivered by the choose and the match function here. And what I need to do here is to only say comma and give the column index number, because I'm interested in the second column. I'll add code in at 2 in here. And for the range lookup argument, I will not bother to give this one because I know the default behavior is always approximate match. I'll close off the VLOOKUP from here, and when I hit enter key, this will now give me this percentage here, and it's speaking from the third table, because what we have here is pineapple. But in case we had apple, just as an example, we now have 7 as a commission rate table returned from the first table. Now let us write this same similar formula in here to return our commission rate. I will say equals choose index number argument. I will automate this using the match function. I'll be looking up for the product that we have in B3, comma, and our lookup array will be this range that we have right here. F4 key on the keyboard to lock it, and the match type will be 0 for exact match. I can close off the index number or the match function, comma, and for the value 1, value 2, and value 3, I will highlight these tables. I highlight the first one, F4 key to lock it, comma. I also highlight the second table for mango commission rate table, F4 key to lock it, comma. I go for my third and the last table, F4 key to lock it. I can close the choose from here, and now what I need to do is to come back and introduce the VLOOKUP, because this is now our table. I'll introduce the VLOOKUP here, and the lookup value this time will be the units sold, comma, and the table array will be this entire thing that is being delivered by the choose and the match. And at the end I will say comma, and for the column index number, I'm interested in returning from the second column, because I know the VLOOKUP is defaulting to approximate match. I may not give the range lookup argument, but in case you wanted to be precise, you can come in here and say true for approximate match and close off the VLOOKUP from here. When I hit enter key on the keyboard, I'll get 7% for this particular product, which is apple, and this is speaking from the first table. So when I drag this formula like this, there you go, you can see different percentages or commission rates being picked from different tables based on the product that is selected here. In the 5th position, we have the SUMIF function. So what does the SUMIF function do? I'll head over to the insert functions dialog box and punch in here SUMIF, click go, and then OK. What the SUMIF or the SUMIFS function do is that it adds sales specified by a given condition or criteria, and it comes with these arguments right here. The range argument, this is the range of sales you want to evaluate, and the criteria argument, this is the condition or criteria in the form of a number, expression, or text that defines which sales will be added. And the sum range argument, these are the actual sales to sum up. Now let us close this particular function's argument and look at the SUMIF function in action. Assuming that we have this data set, and this is sales data, we have the date, we have the company that we sold this product to, and we also have the products, we have the sales amount, and also the categories. So basically what we want to do is to end up with a report that looks like this one right here, and we shall use the help of the SUMIF or the SUMIFS function. So I'll head over to this particular cell and say equals SUMIF, I open brackets. For the range, I'll actually go for column H. This is the range that has the values that I want to evaluate against my criteria. F4 key on the keyboard to lock it, comma, and for the criteria, I'll go for this value that we have right here, and I'll say comma, and the sum range, this is column G that contains the sales or the numbers that I would like to sum up. So I'll click in this particular cell address, holding Ctrl-Shift on my keyboard and the down pointing arrow to highlight the entire range, F4 key on the keyboard to lock it, and I can now close my SUMIF function from here. When I hit enter key on the keyboard, you can see the total amount for all our small transactions are together. Now we can drag this particular formula and see how much did the key transactions bring in, and of course the criteria is right here. Any transaction will be considered to be small if they are less than 50,000, and anything greater than 50,000 they have been categorized as key transactions. So what I can do here is to sum up these numbers very fast, and if I want to calculate the percentage contribution for each category of transactions, I'll say equals the amount divided by the overall total, F4 key to lock the overall total cell reference, and hit enter key on the keyboard. There you go. You can see the small transactions brought in 27% of our entire revenue, and when I drag this particular formula to this particular cell, you'll see our key transactions are bringing in 73% of our overall revenue. So make sure that these percentages add up to 100%. So to test that, I'll come in here and do an auto sum right there, and there you go. So what does the if function do? I'll head over to the insert function dialog box in here and punch in my search area if, click go, and then OK. Let us first understand in the function's argument what the if function does. So for the if function, it checks whether a condition is met and returns one value if that is true. Otherwise, it will return another value if it is false. And it comes with the following arguments. The first one is the logical test. So this is any value or expression that can be evaluated to either true or false. And then the value if true argument, this is the value that is returned if the logical test is true, and if this particular argument is omitted, true is returned. You can also nest up to 7 if functions. Okay, the third one is the value if false argument, and this is the value that will be returned if the logical test is false. If you omit this particular argument, false is always returned. Now let us close the function's arguments and look at this particular function in action. What we need to do here, we are looking at sales for 2018 and 2019. We have the products that were sold in column D, the customers who we sold it to, the date these transactions happened, the cost per item, the number of items that were sold, as well as the total cost. So what we need to do here is to use the if function to make a smart decision, and this is the decision that we want to make. We want to look at the total cost column. If the total cost amount is less than 50, then we charge that particular order a shipping fee of 2%. If it's actually greater than 50, then we do not need to charge that particular transaction shipping fees, and we need to use a simple if statement to do that. I'll say equals, I open the if function, and our logical test will be, is this particular total cost less than 50,000? If that is true, I need to charge 2% on top of this particular cost. And to do this, I'll just point over to the 2% that I have in O1. I make sure that this one is locked because I'm going to be copying this formula down into the total cost itself. I'll say comma, and for the value if false argument, I'll actually say 0. I don't want to charge you. I'll close off the if function from here and hit enter key on the keyboard. You can see that this guy will be charged 867. I can now double click and send this formula down. You can see this guy has not been charged because their total order is above 50,000. Let us go through. We look at this guy. This guy has not been charged because their total order is also above 50,000. So that's how you can use the if function to make such a smart decision. So if I want to calculate the overall total, I'll come in here and say total cost plus the shipping fee and hit enter key on the keyboard. So this will be our grand total that we shall charge on this particular transaction. I can drag this formula down, or I can double click my fill handle to send this formula down. In the third position is our popular VLOOKUP function. So how do we use the VLOOKUP function in Microsoft Excel? I'll head over to this insert function dialog box and then punch in here VLOOKUP. I'll click go and then say OK. Now let us first understand what the VLOOKUP does. For the VLOOKUP, you can see it looks up for a value in the leftmost column of a table and then returns a value in the same row from a column that you specify. By default, the table must be sorted in ascending order if you're working with numbers, and it comes with 4 arguments, and the first 3 are mandatory. The lookup value, this is simply the value to be found in the first column of the table and can be a value or a reference or a text string. The second argument is the table array. This is a table of text, numbers, or logical values in which data is retrieved. Okay, table array can be a reference to a range or a range name. All right, together. For the column index number argument, this is the column number in a table array from which the matching value should be returned. Okay, now we have the last argument. This is optional, but the most important is where you specify the range lookup. Are you interested in an exact match or an approximate match? Okay, now let us close off this functions argument and look at the VLOOKUP in action. In this particular data set that we have right here, let's assume we are maintaining a price list somewhere in our worksheet and we are generating an invoice sample right here. So what we need to do is to just allow a user punch in here the product and the units that this guy is ordering, and the price here will pop up automatically using our VLOOKUP function. So I'll come in here and say equals VLOOKUP. The lookup value this time will be the product that is selected in this cell, comma, and for a table array, I'll actually highlight this entire range, F4 key on the keyboard to lock it, comma, and for the column index number that I want to return from, I will count from the left, 1, 2, 3, 4. You can see the price column is the 4th column, so I'll punch in a 4 here, comma, and because I'm interested in doing an exact match, I'll either pick from the drop down list here exact match. I can punch in a false here, or I like to punch in a 0. I close off the VLOOKUP from here and hit enter key on the keyboard. This will return the price of Apple in this particular price list, and we can confirm that Apple in this particular table, you can see the cost or the price is 652, and that's the value that has been returned in our invoice sample. So what I need to do here is to come in and multiply the units into the price and hit enter key on the keyboard. But because this is gonna be a template, we expect that some of these particular columns will be set up before you actually start doing or generating your invoices. Okay, now what I can do is to drag this particular formula down and let us see what happens. Of course, we'll get #NA errors because there is no value that has been selected in here. But again, we can work around and hide these errors. So I'll come back to this particular formula and wrap it into the if error function. And for the value argument, we shall allow the VLOOKUP to run. Otherwise, I'll come at the end and say comma for value if error show us nothing. So I'll open and close quotes. I close off the if error and hit enter key on the keyboard. Now I can drag this formula one more time and let us see if our errors will be hidden, and that's exactly what happened. Now for the totals, I'll also drag these totals down here, and of course you'll get hash value error in there. You can still use the same if error so that you can hide that particular error. So I'll open the if error. The value argument, this particular calculation should run, comma, otherwise you show us nothing. So I'll open quotes and close quotes, close the if error from here and hit enter key on the keyboard, double click the fill handle to send this one down. Now if I actually choose another product here, let's go for guava, you can see the price will pop up. I just need to put in the units here. Let's assume they are ordering for 7. You will see the totals populating automatically, and that's how you can quickly use the VLOOKUP to help you generate a sample of invoices. With the VLOOKUP, we can also perform an approximate range lookup. For example, we have the commissions rate table, which has been categorized in this particular table. So what we want to do is to come over to this sales report and look at the sales amount that has been generated by each sales rep and calculate the commission that they are supposed to earn. The commission is right here inside this commission rate table. So what I need to do is to come over to this particular cell and say equals VLOOKUP The lookup value will of course be the sales that this particular sales rep made, comma, where are you looking up these sales from? I'm looking it up from this table. F4 key on the keyboard to lock it, comma, and for the column index number, where do I need to return from? I am interested in the third column because this is the column that contains the commissions. So I'll say 3, comma, and because I'm doing an approximate match, I can actually close the formula from here without declaring the range lookup, because I know by default the VLOOKUP will always do an approximate match if you don't supply this fourth argument. But of course, to be sure, I'll just put a comma and then go for approximate match. It's the first option right here, and now close the VLOOKUP from here. When I hit enter key, I get 100 in commission that should be earned by this particular guy here. So I can double click this formula and populate the rest of the commissions. In our second position, we have our average function. So what does the average function do? I'll head over to the insert function and punch in here average, click go, and then okay. For the average function, you can see it returns the average or the arithmetic mean of its arguments, which can be numbers or names, arrays or references that contain numbers. And what you need to do in the arguments is to only keep supplying numbers. Then these numbers can go from 1 all the way through 255 arguments for which you want the average to be calculated from. Now let us close this function's argument and look at this function in actions. For example, if I actually want to calculate the average salary for this particular guy is here, I'll head over to this cell and say equals average. Of course, I highlight this range and close off the average function from here. When I hit enter key, you can see this is the average salary for this particular staff list. In this particular example right here, we shall actually calculate both the average as well as something called weighted averages. So let us go for the average first and later do a weighted average and see what the difference will be. I'll come in here and say equals average, and I highlight the score for this particular student. When I hit enter key on the keyboard, of course this is the average score, looking at the scores that this guy got for each individual assessment. But with the weighted average, because each individual assessment carries different weight, I'll actually head over to this cell and say equals sum product. I'll give the array for our scores, comma, and I'll also give the array for our weightings. Close off the sum product from here and hit enter key on the keyboard. You can now see the weighted average that we are getting for this particular student based on their scores vis-a-vis the weightings for each individual assessment. And in our number one spot is the sum function. But before I show you the different methods you can do summation in Excel, let me know in the comment section what was your favorite function out of this particular list. Now, there are several methods of you doing summation in Microsoft Excel. The first one, I can actually click in this cell. If I wanted to sum up all these particular numbers in this column, I can do Alt equals on the keyboard. This will highlight all the numbers above the cell where I'm punching the shortcut, and when I hit enter key on the keyboard, you'll see in just a blink of an eye I'll have my summations in here. The other method that I can use is to click in this cell and head over to the home tab, and in the editing group of tools right here, I have my auto sum icon. I can just click here once. This will similarly do the same like the Alt equals shortcut. Enter on the keyboard, you'll still get your numbers returned. If you don't do that, you can come in here and say equals sum and then open parentheses. You can give this entire range, or you can actually pick individual cell addresses and hit enter key on the keyboard. Now, if you enjoyed this particular video and you found value out of it, give this video a thumbs up. You can also leave any comment. This will help the YouTube algorithm push this video to other people like you. And if you'd like to up your Excel skills, please check in the pinned comment below to actually join our WhatsApp group where you can enjoy free weekly live Excel classes. See you there. See you in the next video.